Hi, and welcome to the 10 square metre workshop. Recently, when getting tools together for my Dudley tool chest, I looked at guides for making dovetails. I'm not talking about marking them, I'm talking about saw guides. These guide the saw blade rather than following a line. However, the commercial ones leave something to be desired. And of course, as usual, I shall be making my own. Better get on with it. So what were the design criteria? Well, firstly, I wanted to make it out of brass, because the friction between steel and brass is very low. That's why they make bearings out of brass. Secondly, I wanted a fairly long surface for the saw to rub against, to keep it square, and that shows 60mm. Thirdly, I also wanted length against the workpiece. I find these are usually too short on most gauges. Next, I wanted to mount the magnets from the back of the brass so they don't quite break through, giving a smooth uncluttered surface on the front face. I'm using 10mm magnets, so I'm going to plunge cut a 10mm hole. These two housings were made 40mm apart. Last but not least, I wanted a steel keeper across the back to close the magnetic path. It makes a real difference to the amount of magnetism you get. So I cut a slot between them to the thickness of the magnets. With just the magnets in place, it can almost pick up the saw, but not quite. But with a thin steel plate across the back, you can now lift it. But it still slides very smoothly across the saw. I'm making this 1 6 dovetails. That's about 9.5 degrees, which I'm set using angle blocks. I debated making it adjustable, but that just increases complexity and makes it less rigid. If I really want another angle, I'll make another one. The object here is to get enough bearing surface to get a good join. With the slope made, I then drilled and tapped two 4mm holes 15mm apart. With the two parts bolted together, excess material could be marked out and removed. All edges and corners were then knocked off and a brushed finish applied, about 180 grit. I also did a slight kerf rebate there for the offset of the blade. Assembled with a dab of thread locker, it was then checked for squareness before torquing down. With it cleaned up, I can now attach the magnets. This only requires a small drop of iodide in the middle of the strip. No need to interfere with the magnets, they hold themselves in. So, what are the advantages of this particular design? Well, once you've marked out where your dovetails go in the normal manner, and you've made your mark for how deep they should be, you use the reverse side of the jig to line up with your marks and score them across. You then reverse this. The blade is placed in the mark you've just made, the jig moved up to it, you can see it snap together, and then you can start sewing. When one's done, you move it along to the next. You may have noticed that I'm holding the jig on from the back, not the front, as is normal. That's because I'm using a Japanese pull saw, and any friction will be in this direction, so it is supported. It's really a very simple design, but you have a lot of bearing surface on the material, and the angle is held in very accurately. It really does feel very comfortable, and the use is very simple. When you've finished one half, you then just reverse the wood and the vise and do the other half. So there it is, a guide that was easy to make, cost around £6 of materials, and can stand up against any commercial version. In fact, I prefer it. What more does it need? Well, perhaps some engraving to bling it up a little. Well, that's another single session build that produces a useful tool. Hope you found it interesting. Why not subscribe? And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.